Welcome to another episode of DD on the Spot. As always, I'm your host, Ryan Johnson. Before I get to our guest here today, I'd like to remind everyone that if you enjoy this content, to please give a like and subscribe down below. We greatly appreciate it. We have Jodi Miller on the show. She's an IFBB pro, women's physique division. She went to the University of Texas. She's a Longhorn. She has her bachelor's in English, but she's also a grad student right now working on some writing. But most importantly, she's our current guest on the show. Jodi, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me, Ryan.
Absolutely. So why don't you give us a little bit of a backstory on what inspired you to adapt that healthy and fit lifestyle?
Well, I didn't do any sports growing up. The most I did was lift books. I was a bookworm and a nerd. And when I went to college, I started to work out and started lifting weights my freshman year at Gregory Gym. It was before the rec center was built. And little by little, I just really liked seeing my body change. I'm only 4'11", and at the time, I was weighing about 92 pounds my freshman year in college. And so, and I look really young. I'll be 46 in a couple weeks. So you can imagine how I looked when I was 18. We used to ask me like what middle school I went to. I was like, middle school and college. And I think when a woman is really short and cute and looks really young, people think that that woman is a nitwit. And you get talked down to, you're stupid. And the moment you talk to me, you know that I'm not. I definitely use words that are probably, when you stretch them out, they're taller than I am. And because as you said, I have an English degree. I used to teach high school English. And I really, as I started lifting, I really wanted my body to match my personality. I speak my mind, my emotions. I wear them on my face. You know where you sit with me just by looking at me. You can feel the vibe off of me, and I have a very dry sense of humor. But I can be very goofy and funny, but very serious as well. And I really wanted to be taken seriously. So a lot of that started with that, and being short, and my background is German and Russian, so I was just built for powerlifting. I mean, I'm only 3 inches off the ground, but I started powerlifting in college and for UT, and really took to it and loved it. And I started. I remember seeing a girl who maybe now she wouldn't seem very ripped because I live this way every day, but at the time, she was like the most shredded girl I'd ever seen. I had never seen a girl with abs and veins in her arms. And I was just like, oh my gosh, like I want that. I want to be like that. I would look at the football players and look at their quads and be like, I want that teardrop. I want my body to have that musculature and that detail. And I asked her, like, what do you do? Pretty much like people ask me now. So I was one of those people, which I try to keep that in mind when people ask me questions. I try. And so she told me that her diet was a huge part, nutrition was a huge part, and she had turned me on to Cliff Sheets' Lean Bodies book. And I bought the book and I bought the cookbook, and that was when I started eating multiple times a day, like 5 to 6 times a day. Now, I wasn't necessarily doing it perfectly. I remember when I decided I wanted to compete, and I had spoken with IFBB pro June Monroe. This goes like way, way back. I mean, I'm ancient, like cavemen were bodybuilding when I started. It was like 99. Or 2000. I still have the email printed out from her. And she was like, oh my gosh, your diet's all over the place. I don't even know what to tell you. You've got to like change this up. And of course, I've learned so much over the years, but I was just lucky that I had so many friends in all different realms, whether it was, one of my best friends was a football strength and conditioning coordinator and ran the powerlifting team for one of the major school districts out here. I had friends who were in bodybuilding, friends who were judges, friends who were, just so everybody just kind of, helped me. And little by little, I just garnered all this information, just to start off. And I actually started off competing once I decided to step away from powerlifting. I started in the Galaxy Federation. So because there was no figure then, like people can't even imagine the day before bikini was around. But when I explained to people there used to just be bodybuilding and fitness, they were like, what? People don't know the history, which is really sad to me because I think figure girls need to know that figure came about from because girls wanted to do the physique round in fitness but didn't have the dance or gymnastics background. And we used to say if only there was a division where we could just do the physique round and didn't have to do a routine, because I didn't have any drill team background or cheerleading background. So I couldn't do Fitness America. I couldn't. So I was looking for things to do. I wanted to compete. I remember my first issue of Oxygen magazine. Like that's how far back I go, as I was able to buy in the store the very first issue of Oxygen. And Monica Brandt was like my idol. And so looking at all that in the back of the magazine, I would see them cover the Galaxy Federation and the Women's Tri Fitness. And I decided on the Galaxy Federation. And I have a really huge fear of heights. And so this tells you a little bit about how I sometimes go after things that I'm like, I don't know why I'm doing this, but I am. And I never got over my fear of heights. That's why I've stayed so short. And so, but that competing in that really taught me how to just, stand on stage, and because there would be 100 women or more that I was competing with, and I would make it in the top 20 for the physique round. The obstacle course round, I was like the bottom 20 because I couldn't. The cargo net was 15 feet high, and I'd like get to the top, like hyperventilate, and be like, "Oh my gosh, I can't come down." But I remember my friend who was helping me with my diet for the Galaxy Federation. He was like, he said, just for the heck of it. It was the night before my last Galaxy Federation show, and he was like, just for the heck of it, do a double bicep, like show me your biceps. And so he did, and he's like, okay, you're done with this. Like tomorrow, you do this, you're done, and then you're going to do an NPC bodybuilding show. Well, that year they had just come out with figure. And I was like, yeah, why not? I'll do figure and bodybuilding. I mean, may as well. And there were no height classes or anything. And I won my bodybuilding division, and I got fourth out of like 12 girls or something in figure. And figure was very different then. Yeah, and I ended up competing. I went to the national level and did very well at the national level in figure, but just could never get my pro card because my lower half is so muscular, and they didn't want that at the time. There used to be a time when figure girls were told that we were too hard. And now that too hardness is barely going to make it for bikini is nowadays. So then I switched over into bodybuilding. I even won the 2007 Team Universe, the NPC Team Universe, which was drug tested. And I still didn't get my pro card because I didn't win the overall. Because bodybuilding, you don't get a pro card very readily, quite like the other divisions. There's just not the number of pro cards. And so a lot of people may not realize, they thought that I just completely disappeared from the circuit, but I actually went into the INBA and I won the Miss Natural Olympia title. And then women's physique had come around at that point. And my friend Dan Ray, who's a well-known photographer in the industry, he kept saying, Jodi, you need to come back. Jodi, you need to come back. And I wish I had listened to him the very first time, because maybe I would have made my way onto the Olympia stage, because my look, I feel, fits with what the early stages of women's physique was. And now I really have to fight. I do well. I'm very pleased with how I'm doing, being the age that I am and how many years I've been competing, because it's almost 20 years. People don't realize it took me 15 national shows to turn pro. Yeah.
That's so great. And I always like the analogy, like if you were to walk into a gym with 100 people, there's 100 different ways as to how they look the way that they look, whether it comes to their nutrition, whether it comes to how many reps they do, what sort of exercises they do. When you were starting out, was that difficult for you to sort of figure out what worked best for you personally and what gave you the best results?
There was no social media. I mean, it just wasn't like it is now, where everybody, first of all, is trying to make a buck on whatever, flexible dieting or whatever newfangled term is coming out. You didn't have all these followers. You didn't have, there were message forums, But those message forums were for people to just, talk with each other. It was like sitting in a group and just converse, like at the gym, just saying, hey, dude, what do you do? Okay, well, this is what I do. Well, does that work for you? Okay, well, I might try that. And so it really wasn't, and I've had, I guess now, including this year's prep coach, Mike Cox, who I love. He and I just make a really good team. But he's my 12th prep coach out of all the years. So I think a lot of my knowledge comes from working with each different prep coach, really studying my body. And I don't just try something because everybody's doing it. I actually am somebody, I got into this to be different. And so it's kind of tough on this end of it where everybody's doing it. It's like, but I did this. It's like, if you dye your hair red or green and then everybody else is like, ooh, I'm going to do it too. And you're like, yeah, now it's not cool anymore. So now I've got to do something different. But, at the time it was just, just lift. I mean, just do the exercises and lift. And I think because I started off in powerlifting, powerlifters are very different from bodybuilders in terms of mental aspect. I mean, in powerlifting, you have a distinct, you squat. I mean, there are definitive wrong ways to squat. There just are. And you have to reach a certain depth in your squat or you're going to get, disqualified. You're going to get red lighted. So it's the same thing with bench, with deadlift. I mean, deadlift, you pick it up and you put it down and you try not to round out your back. And so there's a lot of technicalities and form and everything. And I'm a huge form and technique person, but that was it. And powerlifting was just eat, eat enough. And so then it became, for me to learn my body and learn how to shape it and understanding what the division was asking of me and what I could do with my genetics to fit within the realm of the division and understanding, my genetics just aren't allowing me to fit into that, or I'm not willing to do the drugs that are necessary in order to reach the look that seems to be in right now that I would have to do in order to reach that, or, whatever it might be. Maybe I don't want my body to look like that. So I have to choose, what I want to do. But at the time, I didn't have to filter through too much. I mean, you pick up Muscle and Fitness or Ironman magazine, you read a couple articles and you're like, hey, I'll try that way to do triceps. Yeah. If it works, I'll keep it. If it doesn't, I won't.
Yeah. So, and when you were starting out weight training, did you find that your body adjusted really quickly, easily, or was it more of a time process?
I was very strong very quickly. Like I said, I'm 4'11", so I'm very short, but I'm very evenly, like I don't have really short arms. I don't have really short legs or really short torso. Everything is real even on me. So people are always surprised when they're like, you're not 4'11", and then you put me next to somebody who's 5 feet or 5'1", and they go, oh, okay, you are. But because I'm very evenly distributed, and I have long arms, and I have long muscle bellies. So like my bicep goes to, I don't have a short little bicep. It goes from here to here. Yeah. And so I was able to pack on a lot of size in a very compact space and a lot of density. And there's some areas I'm a narrow person. So I don't get very wide. I just pack on a lot of density. And that's a part of what makes it tough for me to get the level of conditioning like in my lower body that the other girls have, because my muscles are there's so much there from in such a small space from years of powerlifting. I mean, I really am meant for powerlifting.
Oh yeah. And we've had a few powerlifters on the show, and yeah, absolutely, it's a whole different thing other than bodybuilding. It's just everything with the training and the nutrition, everything is just so completely different. But one of the big stereotypes that we love to bust here on the show is that it's gotten better. I'd say one of the positive things from Instagram is it's gotten better, but some women still have this belief where if they touch one weight, they're just going to Hulk out and become Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson overnight. They're going to put on 50 pounds. I don't know how they think of that, but was that ever something that you ever suffered with when you were getting started out? And even so, like today, if women come up to you and say that to you, what is your main response to that?
in the past, I would have women who would say, "Oh, I don't want to look like a man," and I'm like, "So I can deadlift 330 pounds. I don't. Do I look like a man?"
Yeah.
They're like, "No," and I go, "Okay, you're not going to. Like, you won't." Right now, you're not even knowing how to deadlift properly. So let's just take one thing at a time. I think some of that is that's our society and
Hmm.
gender roles, and this goes into a whole different discussion of what society thinks of what women should do with their bodies and how women's bodies should look. And the way I've always answered this is, if women weren't meant to have muscle, we wouldn't have muscle.
Yeah.
We would not have muscle fibers. You are not, now some women can put on more muscle more easily than others. Same with men.
Hmm.
There are men who can put on muscle easier than other men. There is a lot of genetics that is tied into this. There's a lot in terms of nutrition, in terms of your training, and then the drug use. There is drug use in, just with me having been on, and I'm pretty open about this, but I've been on both sides of the equation. As I said, I won the Miss Natural Olympia title 2 years in a row. I've done powerlifting, drug tested. I was drug tested in the NPC. And I was completely natural until I turned 41 and had to get on testosterone therapy. And so I know what it is to be on both sides of it, and drugs help. Now, do they turn you into the Hulk? No. There's all these factors that go into creating a physique that has well developed muscle bellies that are shaped in a way that is aesthetically pleasing, which I think that's almost a term we need to turn to in the women's divisions and say, is this aesthetically pleasing? Because I think we get lost in, well, that's not feminine. And it's like, but wait a minute. Feminine is a cultural term. And feminine a lot of times gets hung up or snagged on whether somebody is pretty or not. But somebody can be born and genetically not have what typical prettiness or beauty is, because beauty is really defined in scientific terms as symmetrical.
Hmm.
So, but culture defines femininity and beauty. And depending on what culture you're in, that determines that. And so
Absolutely.
some cultures think women should be, and some generations, think women should be a certain way. My grandmother, when she was alive and I was competing, she actually told me I looked like a man. And I was like, what? And she was like, women should be soft and squishy and you feel like a rock when I hug you. And I was like, I don't want to be soft and squishy.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to feel like Jello. And then she would see, I was like, really, let me stand next to a man and you tell me I look like a man. And she was like, okay, yeah, no,
Yeah.
that was, so some of it's generational, some of it is cultural. And I think I think it's more important that women understand that lifting weights, especially powerlifting, lifting weights actually, I think when society doesn't like seeing muscles on a woman, maybe they don't like seeing the strength coming from inside of her.
Yeah, absolutely. I always like to tell the story of when I was in college. One of my good friends, I started working out really seriously then, and then she'd be like, "Oh, I want to come to you to the gym, but I don't want to get bulky. I don't want to get so big." And then this went on for like a month, and then finally one night I said to her, I said, "Look, the amount of weight that you carry in your purse when we go out to like clubs or we go out to eat weighs more than a lot of the dumbbells that are in the gym, and you're not getting big and bulky from lugging that thing around all day." So then that finally convinced her, and she came in, and it's just one of those things where once you walk in and once you start, all the myths really seem to go away. So I just really recommend just getting in there and just starting. But I always love to ask this question. What was your first prep like? Because most people, your nutrition when you get started, it's going to be very clean and everything when it comes to the nutrition aspect. But prep life, that's really taking it up a whole different level. What was that experience like for you the first time?
Oh gosh, first time I didn't know what I was doing. I mean, a friend of mine was helping me, and I, I remember telling him I wasn't dropping fat quite at the rate he was expecting, and he was like, "Okay, so tell me what you're eating." And I still make my potatoes, right? But I slice up potatoes, I cook them in the microwave, slice them up. put them in the skillet, and I let them get crispy on both sides so that they taste like breakfast potatoes or whatever. And I was making tuna cakes where I take the tuna and I, just flatten it up and put spices and stuff and mustard and make it like a crab cake, but a tuna cake. And I was a teacher, so tuna was inexpensive. I think my salary and my age at the time matched each other, and I was in my 20s. So, but he said, "So what? Well, how much are you eating?" And I said, "Well, I eat like the 4 ounces, but I'm still hungry, so I go back and I get seconds." And he's like, "No, you can't do that." I was like, "But why? I'm hungry." He goes, "No, you just have to eat exactly what it says on there. And you have to wait until the next meal. It's too bad. I mean, you're going to be hungry." And I was like, "Oh." And then 2 weeks before, I did my first Galaxy Federation show. I had gone to movies with a friend, and I was like, okay, well, I know that there's no fat in my diet, so I have to get something that's fat free. And I remember I ate Twizzlers 2 weeks out. I mean, I didn't know. I was like, it's fat free. So there's so much that I didn't know then, but that's how you learn. And again, there was no social media. So when it's almost like nowadays when somebody shows up on stage without a tan, I'm like, what is wrong with you?
Wait, people have actually showed up on stage without a tan?
Yeah, there's always that one or two.
Wow.
Yeah, almost. There are so many shows that you'll see it at, not pro shows, typically, but your amateur shows, you'll be like, and some of them have really good physiques, and it's like, how did he not have somebody around him who said, you're a little too pale. Like if you're a color that would work for a wall in your house, you need a tan. Yeah. Everybody has to get a tan for the stage. But I mean, nowadays there's so much information out there, but at the time there was nothing. And I mean, I was the only person I knew who was doing this. I think in my gym, there was one other girl, we're still friends. There was one other girl who actually at the time I was competing, and then she started competing like a year or two later. And so it wasn't odd to go into a gym and be the only female competitor. So you had nobody to turn to. And before Oxygen, there were no magazines for women to let women know what to do or how to do it. And not every single competitor, what they say in an article is what is actually done. Not everybody talks through exactly what they do, or they may give a diet, but it's, what they did for like a week out of their prep, or they fail to mention what supplements they're on or what else they're doing. And so there's a lot that's not opened up about. And that is one thing that I think social media, I think if you can find the right people on social media who are real, who show you their prep look and their stage look and show you their off-season look. And you need to look for people who who have pictures that are unedited and not filtered. I think that is the one thing that does help with things like selfies. I know selfies seem silly and stupid, but what I do hear from people when I do post a selfie is that they do see who I really am. Like, you can walk up to me and I'm going to look. If I posted a selfie of myself from that morning or the morning before, when you see me at the grocery store later on, I'm going to look the same. Well, maybe I'll brush my hair, but it's, you're not going to see me and go, wait, what? Who are you? No, that's not you. And so I think it's really helpful if people go and gravitate towards the ones who are real open and don't just, post about, rainbows and sprinkles and unicorns, and instead really talk through, no, today was tough and here was why. Or, I ate a bag of Doritos, which I did today. But I mean, I'm having my cheat meal later on, so I guess I started early. But I mean, there's, we're human, and I think that it's so important that social media does create some of that humanisticness, but it can also create a lot of other issues too, because a lot of people on Instagram or social media they don't present who they really are.
Yeah, and I've even learned that just from talking to some of those social media people that they are nothing really like that what they portray themselves to be. It's a huge issue. But now, sort of going back to the tan, as you can see, I'm a very pale person myself. And I always got to wonder, what was that first experience like for you putting that tan on? Because we have so many people on here that describe, like, you see muscles that you never thought you had. It was just a whole eye-opening process. But the first time you applied that tan, what was that experience like for you?
I'm going to give you a different perspective that goes back into the early 2000s. And so, I mean, at the time I used Protan, and it was pouring the Protan into a dish and taking the brush and painting myself like a fence.
Oh.
And you would start off sometimes, because I'm pale too. My tan from the Legion has finally come off. Although there may still be, you'll find like 4 weeks later a little spot of your life. I swear I shower. But I would start on like, Wednesday applying my tan, and you tan and rinse and then tan and rinse. I mean, it was just a huge process. It would take hours upon hours to dry. I hated it. My very first time competing, it was Dream Tan, which they don't allow at shows. And there's a reason for it, because I mean, the concept of it is great. So basically it's like putting on a bronzing lotion, but it comes on like if you lean against the wall now has Dream Tan on it.
Oh, yep.
Somebody, they have Dream Tan. Like it just gets everywhere. And it's so bronzy, it can actually blur the lines. And so that is why shows don't allow Dream Tan. And I think America started to not allow it a lot quicker than Europe did. You see, like all of a sudden you can see the dimension of the muscularity. So your abs or the lines in your quads. And definitely now, once the tan goes on, the one thing about being pale, like what my coach said this year, he's like, for me to look at your videos when you're this pale and be like, whoa, that's going to, it means that you really are. When you're really pale and all the veins and all of the lines are showing up, you're lean, like you're ready. But we also, in the beginning, we used to use Pam cooking spray for our glaze. So yeah, I mean, it's old school, and now I'm so people will complain about the spray tanners or whatever, and it's like, yeah, I remember the days when it was like a whole week-long process to get yourself tan, and you wouldn't get any sleep. You were on your feet. It was really stressful. It would take my cortisol levels just through the roof.
That just sounds like a whole different experience than what we've got. And I love to have I have a lot of up and coming musicians, and I have a lot of competitors and health and fitness people on. And I like to ask sort of both the same question. For the upcoming bands, I like to ask, what's that thrill like performing live and being in front of people? But that also applies to the competitors. What is that feeling like for you personally when you get to step on stage, show off all that hard work that you've done for months on end when it comes to your prep and just the year-round process, and to be able to, usually get that really positive reception? What is that feeling like for you when you step on stage?
I truly enjoy being on stage. I feel like, especially with women's physique, because we get to pose in a way that fits our personalities. There's the different poses are supposed to be done pretty much a certain way, but you can add your own flair or look to it, the transitions. I have my own unique style. And I do feel that I have a very distinct stage presence. You don't not notice me when I step on stage. And so I just feel like, okay, well, this is my opportunity to kind of show off what I've worked hard, but I also see it's artistic. And definitely with a prejudging routine or a finals routine, I like to show that I don't just know how to lift the weights, but I also know how to move my body in order to show the judges what I want them to see. Because there's things I don't want them to see. And posing, bodybuilding is all illusion. The way somebody looks backstage is not how they look on the stage. And so whenever somebody looks at somebody else in the gym and goes, you're going to kill it. Well, you're not thinking about a whole bunch of other things. And one of those factors is, does that physique work? Because a stage is set, different stages are at different levels. The judges are sitting below you. They're at a certain, either they're up close or they're a certain distance away. And that can the lighting, everything, whether the stage is big or small, how other girls look around you. If you're surrounded by lots of taller girls, shorter girls, that can completely alter how your body looks. And it's so much that you don't have control over. So definitely the posing is the one thing I tell my posing clients. That is the one thing that you have control over. And it's so amazing to me because people wait until the very end to work on their posing, but yet it's the one thing you have control over on the day of the show. And it's like, why are you waiting to do that? To learn that from an experienced veteran. Not newbies. Don't get newbies to teach you posing when they've only done one or two shows and don't fully understand posing. But to really learn something that you have control over, because you don't have control over judges and their decisions and how they view the people on the stage. You don't have the control over who's showing up at the show or how they're going to look at the show. You might not even have complete control over how your body is going to react. If your coach decided to put pancakes in you that morning and you spill over, do you know how to pose in a way that is going to help to hide a little bit of the thickness that showed up? So yeah, there's just all these things that go into it. So to me, the posing and being on stage, I mean, that I can control me.
Out of the poses that you do, what is your favorite pose and what is your least favorite pose?
I love in women's physique, I think the side chest pose is so pretty. And I think that my body looks best when I am to the side and you can see the curvature of me. And so I really like that pose. I love a front double bicep and back double bicep pose. I hate the ab and thigh pose. I mean, I have great abs, but I hate that pose. It is just so awkward. And when you're short, it's just so tough, and you have to do it in a certain way so that you don't thicken up your obliques, but you still have to get your abs to show. And you don't want to like shove your crotch to the judges. And I see that pose done in all sorts of odd ways. Yeah, and I talk to a lot of people. They don't. I wish we could do like a lat spread pose or something, or just something else. But
absolutely. Yes. And one of the things that I always like to stress that people don't realize is that when you guys are posing, you are flexing literally everything. Like, let's say you're doing your ab pose, you're flexing your legs, you're flexing basically every part of your body. Was that hard for you to learn at first, to be able to sort of flex everything in synchronization?
Well, yes, and to have mind muscle connection, and there's always certain areas of you that you're gonna have a harder time to get that mind muscle connection. I mean, for me, getting my quads to just really getting the cuts to show up and keeping them showing, early on, and I think it goes back to my powerlifting days. I just didn't have a really good. My quads were really strong, and I had a ton of muscle, but I didn't have that like deep rooted feeling it deep within the muscle and feeling the whole separation of the quad. I joke around that my quads don't understand that quad means four. They think they're a unicep, not a quadricep. And it's something that I have to work on. And part of that, I take control of that in the gym with my training and everything. And that's where your time under tension is really important. I teach a lot of my clients that what they do in the gym actually determines how quickly they catch on to poses and whether they do poses properly or not. If I see a client of mine really struggling with something, then I ask them to demonstrate how they do a corresponding weight movement in the gym that connects with whatever muscle we're trying to activate for the pose. And so if I see them, if they can't seem to get their shoulders to settle down, I ask them to show me how they do side lateral raises, and they use their traps. I'm like, well, there you go. That's why this is happening. So we have to back up and we have to fix what you're doing in the gym. So what you do in the gym is really, that's where good posing really starts. But it is hard because also all of this happens in a flash of an eye, because so pros pros have, upwards of anywhere from a minute to 2 minutes to do their prejudging routine and to, we're really put through the ringer when it comes to being on stage and going through call outs, and especially your earlier call outs, your first or second call outs, we're held up there longer. But your amateur shows, so bikini and figure girls to do their individual routines, men's physique, competitors too, you have 10 seconds. You have 10 seconds. And so you have to be ready, like right off the bat. And everything needs to stay tight. You need to be aware of everything. And for women's physique and men's classic, you might have anywhere from 20 to 45 seconds. And I compare it to being like in a car wreck. Like, so everything is slow motion because it's just so shocking. It's like the hood is crumpling up before your eyes. But afterwards, you're just like, I have no idea what happened. Or it's like taking a test, like the SATs or something. And you go, and when somebody asks you, how did you do? I don't know. I don't remember a thing. So that's a lot of how it is. So you have to teach yourself in the practice so that when you hit autopilot, because even as a pro and as a posing coach, there's still things I look at pictures and I'm like, oh, God, I can't believe I forgot to do that. But that's what makes me a good coach, because I'm aware of it and I know how to fix it and I know what to tell others because I've experienced it like in real time.
Absolutely. And probably the most important question that I'm going to ask you on this podcast is, people don't realize, they look at you guys when you're on stage and they probably say, these people must be just this in shape 365 days a year. This must just be what they look like all the time. Let alone do 99% of the people not know that is a look that you have sort of used, that you've manipulated through all of the nutrition and all of the working out into looking a way that is not sustainable. It's not a look that you can achieve year round. How do you sort of prepare yourself mentally for the fact that saying, like, in the mirror, maybe like, I am not going to look this good for a substantial amount of time. I might even a day later start to, put on some weight. Are there any tricks that you sort of use mentally to sort of prepare yourself for, like, I am not going to be able to maintain this physique?
I do think it's important that, avoiding binging and avoiding the yo-yoing and avoiding competing when your body is saying we're done, just so that you don't binge, that if you really are diligent with your off season, and off season really isn't off season, it just means you're off stage. I work, people are like, oh, you're in off season now, so you don't have to work as hard. It's like, no, that's where the work really happens. I do half the amount of cardio. I definitely, right now I reversed out of the show, but, now I'm at 2 cheat meals a week. But I don't eat everything I want every single day. I take my clients, I reverse them out, and I talk with them about this. But I talk with them all the way through of appreciating it. But I think it's like everything in life. I mean, you get your hair cut and it doesn't stay the same. You get your hair colored and it doesn't stay the same. You go on vacation, that doesn't stay the same. I mean, a relationship, there's nothing in life. If something is staying the same, it's dead. Mm-hmm. Like, seriously. Absolutely. If something is stagnated and it's not moving and it's not changing, then it's dead. And if your body is not changing, if a woman, especially women, if you are staying that lean, then something else has to give. And either you're not going to put on the muscle that you want to put on, or you are going to have hormone issues or health issues, or, your hair is going to start falling out. Or there's all sorts of things that can start happening if you don't treat your body right. And I think that in this industry, we have a lot of body dysmorphia. I've dealt with it. I had face dysmorphia, but I didn't have body dysmorphia until I started competing. And so then you put the two together and then I'm really screwed up. It's something that I go into it and I just know. I know that, I need to appreciate how this looks now and take pictures so that I can remember this, and then and appreciate it, and not gripe and complain about how hungry I am or tired I am. And then on the other side of it, appreciate the thicker, curvier. Like, you have to accept both ends of the coin. And I do talk with my posing clients and any of my prep clients about it, and I prepare them and talk with them about you do need to be ready. Like if you reverse yourself out, you're not going to rebound. You're not going to put on 30 pounds. Maybe you can see a 4-pack instead of a 6-pack, or maybe you can see like the major line going down the quads, but you can't see striations or veins in your quads. For me, I tend to keep veins in my arms, but maybe somebody else genetically doesn't. So it just that everybody's different, and you have to figure out what you like in your off season about yourself and what you like in your in season about yourself, and accept those as they are, because those are the seasons of your competition, just like it's seasons of life.
Absolutely. I mean, I couldn't agree more with that. That is a great way of putting it. Now, one of the things that I found out when I started the more healthy and nutritious lifestyle and putting on muscle and gaining size, one negative thing for me was that you're going to get asked to move a lot of people's furniture. You're going to get asked to open a lot of pickle jars. You're going to get asked to do all these sort of things. Like whenever my parents come home with groceries, I got to go out and carry everything in. Have you had similar experiences with that? Like just because of the way that you look? I mean, I know being short probably hasn't made the experiences as much, but looking the way that you look, do you find that people sometimes assume that you can do stuff for them when it comes to lifting things and whatnot?
Sometimes people will be like, do you need help out to your car? I'm like, really? Do I look? I think being a woman and a short woman is completely different. Yeah, I don't. I mean, I get asked a lot of weird questions.
Oh yeah, yeah, we've heard plenty of those. Yeah, it's
ridiculous. Yeah, no, I mean, now I growing up, I was really weak. I actually really was. My mom would ask me to carry in, help her with carrying groceries, and be like, I can't carry this. And then once I was in college and powerlifting, I was like, okay, I can carry all the groceries. And she's like, who is this person? Because I used to eat like a bird, and she had to like make me finish what was on my plate, and then once I started powerlifting, I mean, I just like it was a vacuum. I've out-eaten every guy I've ever dated. So
and like for me, especially like during the summers, every weekend is filled up because I'm still at that age now where everyone's moving out, where it's always, Ryan, can you come over and help me move my chair or my couch or whatever? So it's gotten to a point where I do realize that they are recognizing all the hard work that I put into it. So I do take it as a compliment and do accept it in a positive light. But another question that I always say before I ask it, is it a multi-million-dollar idea for anyone out there who has it? But obviously, when it comes to fit women and women with muscles, your clothing options are severely limited. Like I say, if you have big shoulders, dresses are sort of out of the picture. Jeans are another huge thing that we hear that they're almost non-existent. What are some ways that you sort of compensate for the fact that your clothing options are limited?
I mean, I dealt with this when I worked in normal job and was in an office. So cardigans, because sweaters do stretch, knitted stuff will stretch. So if I had to look professional, instead of wearing a jacket which would not fit around my back, and I have a really small waist, so to fit it around my biceps and then my back and my shoulders, and not make me look like I'm wearing a potato sack. Cardigans really worked. I would dresses actually, so sleeveless dresses, put a cardigan over it, and I mean, I can find jeans. It's just knowing where to go. I found stretchy jeans, and sometimes I'll have to go to Nordstrom's, or I'll go to American Eagle. BB usually has jeans that will fit. I think it's a hit or miss. It's just, if I know I'm going to go shopping, then I have to really look and just continue to be patient and try. I had a wedding to go to a couple years ago, and I had to buy a formal gown. And because again, I'm like a size 0 because I'm 4'11". So yes, people see pictures of me and they think that I'm huge, and then they see me stand next to somebody else and they go, "Oh, like you're a midget." And so I'm 4'11", and at prep time, I'm somewhere between 118 and 122 pounds. And then for this off season, I'll be somewhere between 122 and 130 pounds. But I still wear a size 0 or 1, and sometimes a double 0. And so it's just knowing where to go, and I'll go into the juniors department. So I'll go and Target the juniors department, or I'll go I found the gown during prom time actually, and it was I think it was Physique with Dillard's. in the juniors part. So
yeah,
it's just understanding the style that works
Yeah.
best for you and then sticking with it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I always gotta say, tall people and short people just go naturally together in the weight room. Because I had a friend who she was about 5'1", and she was really into weightlifting when I was in college. And I always tell the scenario, everyone was using the pull-up bars already at the thing. So then she's like, I got an idea. So then she had me put my arm out on the wall, and then she was doing pull-ups off my arm. So tall people and short people really, they find ways to make it work in the gym. So it's just one of those things where I just love seeing, all the different people, because like the people I've had on the show tend to be a little bit short. I mean, I did have the tallest figure competitor women, Casey Shepherd, who was 6'2", so that was interesting, talking to her just about that being tall. But yeah, it's mainly on the shorter side. So it is, and I get that all the time from people who are like, people expect me to be like 5'6", 5'7" in person, but then when they see me, they're like, oh wow, you're nothing like you saw in photos, which is a huge, huge thing. But now we go to our audience favorite and my personal favorite part of the podcast, the questionnaire, where I'm going to ask Jodi here about a dozen or so questions and see how she stacks up to all the other health and fitness guests that we've had on the show. So for our first question, what is your go-to workout song at the moment?
Oh, I'll listen to, I actually listen to a lot of Lana Del Rey. And I listen to Depeche Mode and Metallica, just all sorts of. It's just it's all over the place. Just no country.
Oh,
and I'm not a huge rap. I mean, if the rap is from after the 90s, I'm really not impressed.
Yeah, really, like Eminem's "Lose Yourself" is the only rap that I would ever listen to. But for me, I'm a huge Metallica guy myself. I mean, I'm lucky where I have a gym downstairs at my house. But then when I'm going to like other normal gyms, I have the problem where sometimes I gotta wait for the beat to drop. So like if I'm doing lat pull downs, I'm gonna have to wait like 20 seconds for the beat to drop. So people will be looking at me and be like, "What the hell is this guy doing? He's just like standing there with the weight like already at the top." Everyone out there, I'm waiting for the beat to drop so you can get the proper motivation down. But yeah, and then I also like the cheesy stuff. Like I have the Rocky IV soundtrack on my iPod, and that's that's just the cheesy music that I gotta. That it makes me laugh, but it also helps me get through. But now for our second question: out of all the celebrities on the planet, if you could work out with any celebrity, who would it be?
Madonna.
Ooh, that's our first Madonna. That's a good choice. She definitely has the look too. I mean, she looks even at her age, she still looks unbelievable.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, I don't think she's that much older than I am.
I thought she was in her 60s.
Is she in her 60s now?
I think she's about to turn 60 or something like that. Yeah.
So that's about 14 years older.
Yeah, yeah, and she still looks amazing, and her definition is insane too. That was one of the first people where I was like, wow, she looks like that. That was a really eye-opening experience for me. Me personally, I'd probably do like an Arnold Schwarzenegger just because it's Arnold. I mean, that would just be an experience in and of itself, which would be amazing. But now, out of all the celebrities on the planet, if you could train any celebrity, who would it be?
I could train a celebrity. Maybe like Amy Schumer.
Oh yeah. That's another good. I mean, again, we've never had that on there. Our most popular answer is Kevin Hart, which I mean, I would agree with, but for me, like it would be almost impossible to get a workout in because it'd be too funny. Where I say it would be the best ab workout I'd ever get, but that would probably be about the only thing because we wouldn't be able to get an actual workout in. But what is one food that you always need to have in your fridge?
Egg whites.
Egg whites. Yep.
Yeah, I can do everything with egg whites and oats. If an apocalypse comes and I have egg whites and oats, I'll make it happen. Yeah. But going back to the other question, so as far as not train with, but actually train, that's what I was thinking, Amy Schumer, because it would be just hilarious for me to put her through workouts.
Yep.
Watch her go through technique, and then it would be fun.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I gotta say, yeah, egg whites are the number one answer. They just overtook chicken. Your answer finally pushed them over chicken because chicken was formerly at number one. For me personally, I'd probably have to say like either like a chicken or something like that. But now, other than your height, if people who met you in person, who follow you on Instagram, what would be probably the most surprising thing that they'd learn about you?
Maybe my dry sense of humor. Yeah. I mean, because I think the way I write and the way I speak is real. Those are both very similar. But I think people don't. My friends know how silly and funny I am, and how I I like a lot of puns.
Mhm.
I mean, I love Shakespeare, so
Yep.
I like plays on words, and I laugh at my own jokes and really don't care if anybody else thinks they're funny. I crack myself up, so I'm pretty good. I kind of get a kick out of my jokes more than other people do. But.
Well, that's the first time I've actually had someone who's answered two questions in one answer, because my next question would have been, what is one thing that you find funny that other people may not? And you already answered that with your own jokes, which, believe it or not, that is not the most popular answer. One person said people falling over was one thing that she found really funny, and I was like, oh, well, I mean, to each their own. If you could have dinner with any historical figure of all time, who would it be?
Ray Bradbury.
Ray Bradbury. Okay, you might hate me for this, but that name does sound familiar. What did he write?
Fahrenheit 451.
That's what I thought it was, yeah.
Dandelion wine, the belt. Especially in this day and age.
Yeah.
To hear, he would probably say, I tried warning y'all.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I was going to say, I thought it was Fahrenheit 451, but I wanted to make sure. But for me, if we're going to go for authors, I'll just probably say similar like that, George Orwell. Just to talk to him about like Animal Farm in 1984, two of my favorite books of all time. That would be a very interesting conversation in and of itself, because like he did try warning us, and we obviously didn't pay too much close attention. But now,
these couple years.
Yeah, exactly. So, what is your favorite flavor of ice cream?
Oh, well, I love coffee ice cream with toffee and caramel in it, and I love cookies and cream. And of course, today's my cheat meal day, and so I'm like really anxious for ice cream. But yeah, I would say I like a really good coffee ice cream with a little bit of white chocolate chips in there, and caramel and toffee. I love toffee. So yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, for me, it's chocolate chip cookie dough blizzard from Dairy Queen. I mean, I limit myself to once a month for those, except during the summer, it's once every 2 weeks just because it gets too hot to deal with it. So that is my ultimate ice cream. And now, what is the last TV show that you binge watched?
The last one that so I just started the third season of Daredevil, but before that it was Gotham. But that's because I've binge watched so much. Because, like I said, I'll just if I'm having to do intervals and I can't read while I'm doing cardio, then I've got Netflix series on or HBO series going. And if and during my workouts, I found either I'll listen to podcasts or I'll let just Netflix go.
Yeah.
So.
Absolutely, and that's, for me, surprisingly, you probably wouldn't guess this, but New Girl was the last show that I binge watched on Netflix.
Oh, I don't even know what that is.
New Girl, it's a Zooey Deschanel's in it. She plays she moves in with all these male roommates, and then she's a teacher, and then it's just the shenanigans that go on. It's kind of like a little bit of, it's got a Friends-ish vibe kind of to it. So it was, I actually enjoyed it. I was surprised. I didn't think that I would like it. But what is your favorite TV show of all time?
Breaking Bad.
Breaking Bad?
Yeah, I love it. And maybe because I was a teacher, just to kind of watch that. I really love Breaking Bad.
And being a teacher, I always wanted to live that alternate lifestyle, kind of where.
Well, no, I just get a kick out of it, just the transformation of Walter White, and just to watch that whole and just to see how our decisions, like you can just make one little decision and how it just snowballs, and you continue to make really bad decisions, but just to watch him kind of own his character, and then to watch it just kind of all just
going to pieces.
In the end, to just all fall apart, and you know it's going to end up that way.
Yeah.
But you get this affinity for him, and I really like. It was just such intelligent writing, just very, very intelligent. It was humorous. It was disturbing. It was odd. It was like this could never happen, but this could happen, type of thing. So yeah, I just really. I have watched it twice.
That is up there for me, but I gotta say, I'm a tie. I'm the most basic person ever. It's gotta be either The Office or Friends. Depends on what day of the week it is. One day I'll think Friends is the best, another day I'll think The Office. For me, those are just the two ones that I could put on at any time. I know, like, all the episodes, it is ridiculous. But what is a guilty pleasure movie that you enjoy?
I always have loved Little Miss Sunshine, and I like American Beauty. what was the Amy Schumer one, the train wreck.
Yeah.
What was the other one? Bridesmaids. And yeah.
Yeah.
Some of them.
those are all great, but my go-to, it's also my go-to date night movie, but it's my ultimate guilty pleasure movie, Princess Bride. You put that on, I mean, that's mine. I mean, I'll never admit it to my guy friends, and luckily, I don't think a lot of them watch this, so if any of them do, don't tell anyone else. But yeah, I'll put that on. It's one of those movies where if I'm just scanning through the channels and it's on, I'm gonna watch the rest of it no matter what part it's at. I mean, I remember I was writing my term paper senior year, and it came on, and I had to even put my term paper on hold for about an hour and a half because it just started. So it's one of those movies that just has a deep affinity for. It's by far one of my favorite. But now, if you could change,
I have to say, and going back to the other question, along with Breaking Bad, Game of Thrones.
Oh yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
I have to do my my Game of Thrones thing. I didn't start watching until after like the 4th season. So my brother, being the kind and sweet person that he was, told me that when an episode called The Red Wedding comes up, he wanted me to call him down so he could watch the episode with me and see how I reacted. So he didn't tell me anything, and he was just like, "Oh yeah, you're gonna really enjoy this." So then that whole thing happened, and I was real happy about it for kind of, you know, and then he filmed me watching it too for the first time, so I'm really grateful. I mean, luckily he hasn't uploaded it or whatever, but I was freaking out. I was like, "This is BS. I'm never watching this show again." But yeah, that show by far is up. I mean, when that show ends, that might be my favorite show. I'm just mad that they took a whole extra year to get the last season done. I was like, come on, I don't want to wait a full 2 years, but. Yeah.
Well, I mean, we're still waiting for Martin to, the author to finish writing. Yeah. So
that's true. That's true.
I read 4 of the volumes of it, so yeah.
But now, what if you could change anything about the sport of bodybuilding? If you had the all-knowing power to do so, what would be the one thing that you'd want to change?
I would like for well, there's a couple of things. I would like a distinct rubric for the judging, but that's the teacher in me. I mean, I think that the more subjective something is, the more objective the criteria needs to be. It needs to be laid out in a particular manner in which you understand where the percentage of your points are coming from and how you're getting scored in a very concrete method. But I understand how that's probably not doable or possible or ever going to occur. So on the other side of it, I wish for the women, I wish there was a way that we could achieve the look that was classic in the 70s and early 80s, and bring us away from some of the overabundance of drug use.
Yeah.
That's not saying that everybody is having an overabundance of it, but I do think that out of all the time, we're starting to get a little bit out of hand, and it's. I also think there's a little bit of a forgetting of what women's genetics, what our bodies, the shapes of our bodies are meant to do, and I wish that there was a division or something that. I just would love to go back to the classic, like the Carla Dunlap look and the early days of Corey Everson, and because and of course, I mean, I'm biased because I feel like my physique fits in that, but that maybe it fits that because that's what I strived for in the early days. So yeah, I think those would be some of the things that I might say I'd want to change. But on a whole, I mean, I've lasted this long in it. Again, I've competed for just about 20 years, and I've done probably 45 or more shows in that time in all different divisions, different levels, different federations, different countries, different states. And I think a lot of that is my willingness to evolve enough to fit in without going against what I want for myself, internally and externally.
Absolutely. And now I like to ask these two final questions before we wrap it up here. I ask these questions to every guest that I have, but if you were walking down the street and someone comes up to you and says, obviously, wow, you look amazing. I want to sort of adapt a more healthy and fit lifestyle. What would be the best piece of advice that you would give that person in order for them to be successful?
Be patient and be consistent.
Yep. That's a huge one.
It's a process. It's going to take time. Your nutrition is just as important as the work that you put into the gym. And also remember who won the race. The turtle won the race, not the hare. And so taking the quick way is not the best way. Take your time, evolve slowly. It'll be worth it in the end. Be more appreciative of it, and it will be longer lasting, and your health will stay with you for decades.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I mean, just looking at Jodi, and just when she told us her age, I mean, that's one of the biggest benefits that you can ever see right there. I mean, she doesn't look a day over 25, in my opinion. So it's just, everyone just adopt that healthy and fit lifestyle. And now lastly, if you could go back and talk to the 18-year-old version of yourself, what would be the best piece of advice you would give her?
Don't date any of the boys that you decided to date. And go for your master's degree a little bit earlier.
Yeah.
Everything happens when it's supposed to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And for me personally, it would be, you can't please everyone. I mean, I was a big people pleaser back then. I mean, I'm only 24, but still, it's one of those things that I've learned over in my youth. Still, but where can people, I mean, obviously we'll leave the links down below for your Instagram page and everything else, but where can people get a hold of you other than Instagram if they wanted to get in touch with you for some personal training or just some overall, information?
So my website is www.jodileigh.com. So that's JODILEIGH. Leigh is my middle name. And then my email, which you can contact me through the website, but my email address is jodileigh@gmail.com. So JODILEIGH@gmail.com. And on Instagram, if you're going to direct message me on Instagram, please be specific. Don't just say hi.
Yeah.
Because if I follow you and you just say hi, I'm not responding.
Yeah.
So if you're interested in a serious inquiry, business inquiry about posing instruction, which is my specialty, or online training, or help in any of that area, or for writing or anything like that, then be specific in the message, because I get a lot of
Yeah, we've heard plenty of horror stories. Believe me, it is ridiculous. But again, I'll leave all those links down below. And Jodi, we cannot thank you enough for coming on the show. I mean, me personally, I've followed you for years because you are a huge inspiration for me. And just being able to talk to you, it was unbelievable, and it was a great experience. And we honestly wish you nothing but the best. And are you currently getting ready for any shows? Or I know you're in school now, but are you preparing for any shows upcoming?
Well, I just finished my 2 shows for the year in September. I competed in the beginning of September at the Arizona Pro Show, and then I competed the end of September at the Legion Sports. And I placed 6 out of 30 women at the Legion. Was very, very pleased with it. I brought my best look that I've brought in my career. So that ended my 2018 season. Also, there are no more open pro women's physique shows, except, well, not in the U.S. There's one in Romania. So it's just a matter of looking at the calendar next year. I am in off season. So it's been about 3.5 weeks since I competed, and I feel that I've entered off season pretty well. And so, my coach and I won't make a decision about what show I'll do until we reach next March, which I'm fine with. I'm not in a rush to get on stage. This year was a pretty, this was, this, Ryan, but my dog had passed away 10 days before I stepped on stage in Arizona. And so it was very unexpected. 3 weeks earlier, I'd taken her into the vet, and she had completely normal blood work. There was nothing. She was slowing down, but there was nothing wrong with her. We didn't find anything or see anything. And I found her. I mean, it was seriously like 1 minute she was fine, and I was, looking at her, talking to her, and then a few minutes later, I turned my back and then walked back into the living room, and she was lying lifeless on the rug. And I am not married, I don't have kids, and that was she was my baby. And so it was really hard. It was emotionally very stressful and draining, and trying to balance grieving over the sudden loss of her, and keeping my cortisol levels from getting out of hand as I'm getting ready for the show. And I actually managed to reach the best conditioning that I had, ever in my career. So it just, I'm a little emotionally drained. And so I'm thankful to be in off season, and I'm trying to, I kind of had to take a break from some schoolwork and everything. And cause, with writing, I mean, I do deal with depression, anxiety. So trying to make sure that I didn't fall into that. So it's taken a lot of mental and emotional energy. So I've been trying to just be kind to myself as I move into off season, and not, just consistently go in the gym and do everything that I need to do, but not, just kill everything and wear myself out. But so yeah, I mean, I'll look at, next year I'll decide. In the spring, I'll decide when I'll step on stage. I mean, that's the great thing about being a pro, is that I'll compete when I compete. I mean, there's this many shows in the year. I'm a pro now. I get to choose. I'm not relegated to just these particular national shows. And I have moved my set of goals to what I want from my physique, rather than trying to get a placing or trying to get to the Olympia, which I've been close, but I don't know that it's possible for me to achieve that. So the more I put my goals and focus on me, the happier I'll be in this industry.
And I think you have a definite chance at the Olympia. I mean, just even looking the way that you look now, I mean, you are definitely one of the hardest working too. And we cannot wish you nothing but the best in all of your future endeavors. And like I always say, kind of with the whole Rocky thing, for everyone out there, enjoy your pets as much as you can, because you never know how long you're going to have them. Make sure, if you have a pet out there, to give them some extra love today. I mean, and again, we're so sorry about Roxy. I mean, like I shared before, I lost a pet last summer, or 2 summers ago, and then that was really, really devastating for me too. So I mean, it's so bad, but it's just really enjoy all the time that you have, especially with other people too as well. Just enjoy the people that you have, because you're on this earth for basically a speck in the time of, in the grand scheme of things. So just, enjoy it and try to get as much of a fulfilling experience out of it as you can. And again, Jodi, we cannot thank you enough for coming on the show. And lastly, is there anyone that you'd like to give a shout out to before we wrap things up?
Just want to again thank Fox for all of his friendship and help this year, and the collaboration that we had, because we worked on my prep together, and so it was very, very nice. And of course, my friends who've been there for me, this year, and then my suit sponsor, Goddess Glam Suits. She made my suit last year, and then she did a whole new creation this year, and just amazing. I send all of my clients to her because I truly believe in her work. But to wear her creation and feel like a goddess on the stage is amazing. So, yeah, and then wherever my little mini dachshund Roxy is, that's. Yeah.
Absolutely. And again, Goddess Glam Suits, I'll leave a link down below. We have a little sponsorship shout out, and I love to do that. But again, you guys, Jodi Leigh Miller, go and follow her on Instagram and all those other links. I'll leave everything down below. This is Ryan Johnson, DD on the Spot, signing out. Have a great day, everyone.